If you found this podcast, chances are you're a high achiever and you're successful. But now you're stuck and stressed, and you realize that everything you've created hasn't given you the fulfillment and the joy you thought it would. This is where we discuss the keys of high performance mindset and stepping into the next best version of yourself. Welcome to the Positive Persistence Podcast. Welcome back to another episode of the Positive Persistence Podcast, where we bring you stories to inspire you and strategies to help you tap into the next best version of yourself. Today, we are joined by an incredible woman whose specialty is helping women step into their passion, power, and purpose to execute their life of their dreams. Now, she's a motivational speaker, host of the Where Passion Meets Purpose podcast. She's an entrepreneur, restaurateur, certified professional coach. Holy cow. I would like us all to welcome Jen Mentesana. Welcome to the show.
Oh my goodness, Ian, thank you for that intro. And I am so grateful to be here. We've been trying to do this for a while now, so I'm glad we finally found the time.
Yes, and I have been looking forward to this since we met over a year ago at our mutual friend, Emily Lago's Unstoppable Success Summit in Dallas. And I had the privilege of sitting next to you at lunch and having a conversation and learning about you. And it intrigued me. So I wanted to definitely carry on that conversation and share with our listeners and viewers your amazing story and the things that you are up to right now. So let's just dive into it, shall we?
Let's do it. Yep.
Okay. So we were kind of talking before we hopped on here a little bit about your background. And I would love if you could, so our listeners and viewers have some context, kind of unpack for us kind of your professional history, starting back in college, because for many of us, like myself, we started on one path going in college, thinking that we were going to be doing something for the rest of our lives. And some of those things happened and the paths changed and we had to pivot and figure something else out. And I know that you had a similar experience.
Exactly. I mean, I kind of, from the time I was a little girl, loved dancing, performing, singing, being on a stage, and then kind of got into the interest of speaking and public speaking. Took, forensics in high school. It's like actually my only honors class was advanced public speaking. And then knew kind of I wanted to go into journalism. It was just one of those things. When I was a little girl, I was obsessed with entertainment television, Mary Hart, all the things about, broadcast and entertainment. And so I knew going into college what I wanted to do. A lot of kids, go in undeclared and don't know. I was on a plan and on a mission. I specifically went to the school that I went to in Columbia, Missouri, because at the time, University of Missouri was the number one journalism school in the country. And I went to a small school adjacent to University of Missouri called Stevens College, but Paula Zahn had gone to school there and graduated from there. Don Wells from Gilligan's Island. It was a small women's college, but it was in the same town. And there was just, that communications energy in the town. And I was super into it. And I went through, my 4 years in college with that degree. But when my parents divorced my sophomore year and my dad went into some financial difficulty and health problems, he wasn't able to help me pay for my tuition or anything else. And so when I graduated, I was fortunate enough to graduate and get through that, but had a mountain of debt. And so when I graduated from college, my goals of being a journalist kind of shifted to how can I make the most money? Right? How can I pay my debt off? How can I pay my bills?
Yeah.
It kind of went from an affluent lifestyle to having to make it on my own, waiting tables and going to school at the same time. And I wanted to maintain the quality of life that I'd always been given, but I wasn't going to be able to do that if I went into journalism right away. I mean, I think the top paying salary to start at a news station was like $13,000 a year or something crazy like that. I mean, this was 1994, so a long time ago. But anyway, I opened up my broadcast journalism book, like the, Broadcast 101, and looked at all the jobs you could have with a communications degree. And the one that was the top paying salary was media sales. And so that was the career that I went into. I just said, okay, I've got the degree. I'm going to go get the best paying job that I can get. And I moved to Chicago with some girlfriends and I started out in radio. I started out as an assistant. And I did that. Yeah. I started out in radio sales at a cool station called WXRT in Chicago. Is one of the most famous rock stations in the country.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was awesome. I had the chills even talking about it because it was one of my best jobs of my whole life. And I did that. I was an assistant for almost 2 years, and I was really anxious to get my media sales career going. And so I left XRT to take a sales job because there wasn't one available there. And then so went this, chasing the dollar career for the next 15 years. And I worked in media sales in radio in in two markets. I moved back to Los Angeles. I worked for CBS Radio. I worked for a radio rep firm for years. And then I went into digital media sales for years. And, I made a lot of money and I was successful, but I wasn't having fun. And I wasn't passionate about what I was doing. And so that was really kind of the wake up call for me, fast forward 15 years into my career when I realized like I'm good at what I do, but only because I love people. I didn't really care about selling air. It wasn't
Mm.
something I could get passionate about. And so that was kind of a wake up call for me. And I was fortunate enough when I married my husband that he was financially stable enough to take care of the both of us. And I was trying to get pregnant at the time. And I went back and got a coach certification. And I kind of was dabbling in a lot of different things at that time. I did a little, I was doing some freelance work on the side. I was just doing a lot of different things, trying to figure out me. And I
Mhm.
want to say, I was 33 years old at that time. And I think that's kind of an interesting time when we all kind of, we're 5 to 8 years into our career. And is this what I want to do? And I really didn't know. I knew I wanted to be a mom, and I knew I was passionate about people, and I knew I wanted to have something outside of my kids, and to support my family. But and so I dabbled in coaching, got my coach certification, started coaching clients on the side. And that's when my husband got let go from his big media sales job. He was
Mm.
a general sales manager at a radio station here in Los Angeles, and he got let go about 3 years into that job. And he came home and he said, "I think I want to open a restaurant. I want to live out my dream of opening a restaurant."
Yeah.
And so that was kind of, now fast forward, here we are, a baby. We've got a 1 year old. I'm just getting my footing in my coaching career, and he wants to open a restaurant. And if anyone out there listening knows what it's like to open a restaurant, it's insane. And the fact that we thought we could do that with a 1 year old, we had to be crazy. Um, so yeah, I dove in with him head first. We wrote a business plan. We pulled in his brother who'd been in the food business all his life, and my husband's a great cook. I mean, anybody who knows, he's Italian, comes from a big Italian family. The Italian grandmother at the kitchen table, yelling and teaching them how to make dough and not to over you work the meat and all this kind of stuff. So he had that background, and I was just more a people person. So we dove in and did it. Had another kid. I mean, we're talking 4 year olds and 2 year olds by the time we're opening a restaurant. Plus, my daughter was 12 at the time. It was insane. It was crazy town for probably 5 years of doing that. And then we opened a second location and, got it kinda up and going, and then COVID hit. And so, as everybody knows what that time was like, I mean, no matter what business you were in, if you were lucky enough to have a career where you're sitting in front of a desk all day and could
Right.
be on Zoom, you were
Right.
working, but everything else was shut down. And
Yeah.
we, especially in California, indoor dining was like shut down immediately. And so
Right.
we knew pretty early on in the pandemic that our second location wasn't going to make it. It was just didn't have enough legs underneath it to sustain being closed and, living off of takeout. And so we had to close that restaurant about 3 years in, and it was tough. It was really tough on us. Talk about, having to go through adversity. My husband, it hit him hard. We had poured like $500,000 of our own money into that restaurant and
Mm.
had to close the doors and just walk away. It was tough. It
Yeah.
was, talk about adversity. Yeah, it was
I
brutal.
imagine.
And so we regrouped and we immediately, I know everybody says that word from 2020 pivot, but we really did like, look into, hey, so what do we need to be doing now? And what we did was we regrouped and we thought about what does the community need right now? And forget us. How can we serve? And I think a lot of people started to think about that at that time. Like, okay, instead of focusing on woe is me, how can we, put the energy outward and try to solve some sort of problem for someone because it just makes you feel better, right? And we were all in a place where there wasn't a whole lot we could do, but we realized that we could help families create fun take and bake meals at home. So we created these pizza kits with our Neapolitan pizza dough, our sauce, cheese, toppings, and created an activity for families at home who are really sick and tired of either takeout or making the same meals over and over again. So
Right.
that turned into this whole new venture for us. And then we started doing food manufacturing and making par baked pizzas that we flash freeze and vacuum seal. And now we ship those out and send them to entertainment venues. So that really kind of, that moment of challenge turned into opportunity for us. It just put some wind in our sails, I think, to be like, have adversity and then come out on the other side and be able to move forward through something.
Yeah.
But about fast forward 2 years, we get back on our feet, we're all good. And I just hit a wall. And I was like, this was my husband's dream. I've been doing this now, raising our kids, doing the restaurant thing with him. And I got to get back to me. And I
Yeah.
realized I
Right.
kind of lost myself during
Right.
that time. And so I had a wake up call about 2022 and I just said, who am I? Who am I going to be outside of my kid's mom and my husband's wife
Like,
running
yeah.
his business,
Right.
right? And that's when it hit me. I needed to go inward and figure out what was it that I wanted to do with the rest of my
Hmm.
life. And now at this point, I'm almost maybe 50 years old and thinking, well, I could just go, okay, I'll ride off into the sunset and cruise and raise my kids. And not that that's cruising, but just I knew there was something more I had to do. I
Yeah.
knew there was something more that I had to give of myself. And for me, I'm a pretty spiritual person and I knew there was something that God had on his heart and on my heart for me to do in this
Yeah.
lifetime. And that's when I went back inward and revisited my coaching and thought about broadcast journalism and how much I loved it. And that little girl that loved to perform, what could I do to, rekindle that back in me? And so I looked into podcasting and then I found Amberly Lago and then I just was off and running. And that's why today I'm so passionate about working with other women who are in that place that I was, who want to step into that power of themselves again and really find their purpose. And we all have, I believe, many careers inside of us, and how we choose to use those gifts and talents is up to us. And we need to figure that out.
Absolutely. I mean, there are so many pearls of wisdom that you just dropped in that story. And I love that you were talking about COVID and what we had to do. Yes, pivot is the word, but we all had to do that. Relating from having a brick and mortar fitness business. My wife and I, we had to pivot and we had to flip it into an online virtual business overnight. Just to be able to survive. But I love the fact that, and I'm gonna use this going forward, Jen. Thank you for giving me this idea here. Is to
Yeah.
funnel everybody back to 2020, right? When we're talking about adversity and we're talking about coaching, either with our clients or anybody that we're talking to about resilience and adversity, like think back to 2020. Like what did you do?
Yeah.
Because we all had to FIO, we all had to figure it out, and we did, or else we wouldn't be here now.
Right.
So if once we are hit with that adversity, whatever it is, if we can remember, like we made it through some really tough stuff before.
Exactly.
So whatever it is that's standing in front of me now, I've got the battle wounds and scars from 2020, and the confidence, that I can get through whatever is in front of me. So I'm really happy that you brought it up and made that point.
So
So
true.
wondering if you could share more about the moment when you realized coaching was something that you were really interested in. So maybe coaching was your calling, and how you kind of felt in like your transition from going from that media sales to this new path of coaching.
That's a really good question. So when I worked at KCBS FM, I had a manager who had the foresight to give me a strength finder quiz.
Okay.
And in that quiz, and I had done, being in sales, they're trying to figure out and put you in a box and say, what kind of, skill set do you have here and there? And this one was unique because it really drew out the values and the core human being of who you are. And when I got the results of that quiz, and God bless this woman that saw it, she looked at it and was like, "You're an incredible person, but you're not a salesperson." Like, she was honest with me and she
Yeah.
said, you care too much. You care too much about, and I would do that with my clients. I would literally like say, you know what, you might as well just write me the check because this is not going to benefit you. If you've only got $5,000, keep your $5,000 and go do some, you know, on the street campaign because I'm taking your money and it won't work for you. Like, I literally didn't have the heart to take someone's last $5,000 or $20,000 or whatever it was in their campaign because I knew better that I couldn't just sell for the fact of selling. I needed to believe in what it was going to work for them. And so that quiz made me really think about who I was. And I had been ignoring that for a long time because I was like, I just need to make money. I just need to survive. And so when I shifted that thought process into, okay, fine, what can I do with this? If this is my strength and this is my gift and these are my values, what can I do?
Hmm.
And I skipped a lot of stuff. I went to school for nonprofit. I took classes at UCLA for a few years in cause related marketing. Like, I was really trying to figure out my thing.
Yeah.
And when I realized I have a gift and how do I use that in a career, that's when it all shifted for me. And it was pretty quick that I was like, okay, searching online. And luckily, we have Google now where you can literally go, or even ChatGPT, what
Right.
can I do for a career with these skills, right? Like, you can literally type that in and get a list.
Yeah.
And so when I found coaching, I will never forget. I was in the middle of kind of a crisis, and I was sitting in this coffee shop at night in Hollywood that I had found an ad about look into coaching and getting certified. And I'm sitting in this coffee shop, and there's all these different types of people around me. And this guy's up there speaking about how he used to be a hairdresser and how his gifts and talents were really being able to listen and mirror back what people, and he found coaching and he was like, I never looked back. I hated being a hairdresser, but I loved people. And it just a light bulb went out for me. Like,
Mhm.
this is something I can do.
Yeah.
I can actually help people find what it is that they want to do, find their purpose, find their dreams. I coached so many people at the time when my baby was sleeping. I had converted my garage into an outdoor office, and my baby would be inside napping, and I'd have the monitor. This is before Zoom, and I'd have the monitor there in my office, and I'd coach clients in there. And, maybe a couple a day, 3 or 4 days a week. It was amazing. It was such a gift and I loved it. And so I realized this was something that I could really do with my life. And I did put that part of me on hold to help my husband launch his dream, but it was never gone. And we always say to he's like, oh, that was, $7,000 that we spent on your coach certification that you ended up not. And I'm like, no, but I'm using it now. And who knew? We didn't know back then what this was going to turn into. And
Right.
so it's just interesting how life, and I do have a book coming out in the fall about following the breadcrumbs of life. The breadcrumbs, that the little nuggets from the universe,
Yeah.
your intuition that
Yes.
I believe God gives you
Love
to
that.
nudge you towards the path that you're meant to go down.
Right.
But you have to be listening and you have to be open enough to listen and to check in with yourself, with your intuition and say, what is this trying to tell me? What path am I supposed to be? And I'm so excited. I have a new client call later with a young girl. She's barely 30 and she's in a transition. And I'm like, good for you for listening to your intuition and telling you, I don't have to do something that I think I'm supposed to do for my career. I can find what it is that I'm really meant to do in this lifetime and go down that path. And she's doing it before she's 30. Imagine that. I wish I would have had the foresight to do that at that age. I was just chasing money,
Yeah.
So I think it's just a really powerful thing when you can go inward and check in with who you really are innately and what gifts and talents that God gave you or put on your heart that you are meant to do in this lifetime and follow that. Don't worry about what everybody else is doing or what everybody else is saying. Ask yourself, who am I and what do I have to offer the world? And from there, you can really explore a life of magic. And that's what I want for everyone.
That's awesome. And you're so right, right? And in listening to this, it sounds so simple, which it is, but we know that it's not
Yeah.
easy, right? And especially when you are dealing with raising your kids. You're working in your regular 9 to 5 job, and then you've got maybe you're taking care of the house, and now you're running kids to practices, and you're doing all of the things, momming 24/7, 365. What are some of the steps that someone can take to allow themselves to pay attention? Because it's really difficult to find those, what I like to call metaphysical breadcrumbs that can lead you to your dream or lead you to your purpose, but it's really easy to miss them because you are so laser focused on just getting through the day to
Yes.
get your to-do list checked off. So do you have
That was
any?
me, Ian. I
Yeah.
can I can tell you because that was me. 2022, I was chasing everything, just trying to keep up, and I wasn't connected to me. And a lot
Mhm.
of moms, and I'll speak to moms specifically right now, do that because they think that they're supposed to shut off their needs. They're supposed to shut off what they want and put themselves last
Right.
to meet the needs of their children, especially when your kids are young. And under 9 it's really hard because they need you. But that window of time, and if you're working full time and you're raising kids, it's super hard. But there are ways to do this. Like I'm coaching a client right now who's got a business, she's got a 2-year-old, a 5-year-old, she's got it all going on. And I am like, you have to find that window of an hour, 1 hour a day
Mhm.
that is uninterrupted and non negotiable for you. And you do whatever it is you need to do in that 1 hour to give yourself peace, to journal, to pray, if that's what your practice is, to go for a 30-minute walk and get out in nature, to do something that opens you up and keeps you from that shutting down, rat race, check the boxes mentality. And I always suggest doing that first thing in the morning. I know it's hard to get up early. Listen, I am not an early person. It is really hard for me. I read the book, The 5 a.m. Club, and I did it for 3 months. I woke up at 5 a.m. and it almost broke me, but I had to do it. I had to do it because I needed to write my book, and that was the only time I could do it.
Yeah.
But point being is that whatever that time is, and you got to get your partner on board. Be like, look, if you're fortunate enough to have someone who's can support you and say, I got the kids for the first 30 minutes of the morning. You
Yeah.
get up at 6:30 to 7:30, and I got them from 7 to 7:30. Go do you for an hour. Or if it's in the evening and it's I need to go out for a walk once dinner is done for 30, 45 minutes and just do me. You really do need that support system, and you have to get your significant other on board so that you can maintain your joy, your happiness, your peace. And it really is, and you have to do it for each other. You have to. And when your kids get older, there is a window. I mean, here's the good news. Up until 10 years old, it's tough because you can't leave your kids at home alone, right? But once your kids are old enough where you can leave them for 30 minutes and go for a walk, it's a game changer. Like I literally have to now have windows of time. This is me time. When I'm in my office with the door closed, boys, don't bug me. Please, I'm working or I'm having me time, or I get up an hour early, or my husband and I go for a walk in the afternoon together and we tell
Mhm.
the boys after dinner, you've got an hour, go on video games, whatever it is you want to do, we need our hour, right? So it's literally setting those things, those boundaries and those schedules. It's
Mhm.
so important.
It's time to ask yourself, when was the last time you prioritized you? Did you know that research shows that nearly 85% of high performers struggle to maintain a performance mindset while juggling the demands of work and personal life? Those who actively prioritize their performance mindset and personal growth are 30% more likely to achieve their goals in business and life. If you're feeling crippling stress and anxiety, or if you're feeling guilty when you take a moment for yourself, or if you're stuck in the grind and feeling burnt out, you're not alone. Many of us yearn for more, but struggle with the fear of being judged or feeling selfish. And you want to step into the next best version of yourself. That's why I created the Rinse Method, which got me from paraplegic to marathon runner. Backed by science-based proven strategies and now customized for high performers like you. If you're stuck and stressed and want clear steps that you can implement today to move forward, make sure you visit thepositivepersistence.com to download our free Rinse PDF. It's so important to be able to carve out time for you to connect with yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And the only way, and getting back to the intuition question, because I know I threw a lot out there, but the only way to really get in tune with, I mean, the way it happened for me was I had a breakdown. I mean, and I had to. It was like a health risk.
Right.
But you don't want to get to that point. You want
Mhm.
to start to do the steps like taking care of yourself, getting enough sleep, getting that me time, going on walks. And the more that you can self-care in those ways, the more your body opens up and you will be able to connect with that intuition and that higher power.
Yeah. What do you say to someone who's listening and is like, God, this is great information, but it's so much. Like that is so much for me to do. If you were to say, okay, start with one or two things, what would be the most important one or two things that you could give somebody to do to start on their path of being able to reconnect with themselves?
There's a short answer and a long answer to this. I will tell you the short answer is don't look at your phone first thing in the morning. um,
Yeah.
put your phone somewhere in the bathroom. I know we use our phones but do not react first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
If the minute you get out of bed, you're looking at your phone, you're already reacting to what's coming at you versus you putting yourself in control of your day. So that's the first thing. The biggest game changer for me was moving my phone away from me next to my bed. I would also add taking 5 minutes and write in a journal of some kind. Write down 5 things you're grateful for every
Yeah.
single morning. That's going to this is such a simple thing that you can do that starts your day off right. Because for me, what I used to do was I'd wake up and I'd be like, oh my God, gotta get kids up, gotta get up. And listen, reacting. And that's your day starts like that. It's going to finish like that. But if you can start with a sense of peace in your morning, prayer, gratitude practice, drinking water, if you're lucky enough going for a walk, those things, just simple, even 15 minutes before jumping into the needs of everybody else,
Yeah.
it's going to set the tone for your day.
Absolutely. And would you also say, let's say that not a morning person. I just can't bring myself to get up in the morning, let's say. You can still do those things at a different time in the day, but you just have to make sure that you carve out the time to do it,
Yes,
correct?
for sure. I mean, I say morning only because it's usually the quietest time of the day if
Yeah,
you
that's
can get up a
optimal.
little bit earlier than your kids.
Right.
If not, just find 30 minutes in your day, go for a walk. Do something for yourself. Everybody has 30 minutes. We can all take 30 minutes. I mean, do it on your lunch break instead of going and chit-chatting in the office cooler or whatever it is. Go for a walk, get outside. My favorite when I worked in corporate America, my favorite thing was to go on walks during lunchtime because I'd come back refreshed and I was ready to go for the rest of my day, as opposed to going and sitting, at some quick cafe, rushing to get back, being in the rush. You have to
Um,
slow down. You have to slow down and take time for yourself.
So, Jen, can you tell us about, and because I know there have to have been many challenges in your journey to where you are now. Can you tell us about a particularly challenging moment in your entrepreneurial journey and how you overcame it?
That's a really good one. I mean, I already kind of highlighted, I think the toughest one was going through the loss of our second restaurant during COVID. And the restaurant in Hermosa Beach that we had to
Mhm.
close 3 years
Mhm.
in, we put our heart and soul into that restaurant. And I
Yeah.
think when I'm not just saying the restaurant, I think it was the dream dying. This
Mhm.
idea that we had a plan, we had a business plan, we had opened one restaurant and then almost 3 years later opened our second and we were on a roll and we just thought we're going to keep going. And when that didn't happen, I think it was the realization of failure in our minds of we had set out to do something and that's not going to happen. And that moment where you shift to I'm accepting this and I'm going to find a way to move forward because there's a wall in front of me and I'm
Mhm.
going to go find the window. And I think that's really when that moment happens, there's a shift that has to happen, but it starts with acceptance. And it starts with, I always say like when you're trying to put you're trying to get your car out of it's stuck in the mud and you're pushing on the gas and you're pressing on the gas and you can't get it out of the mud. Sometimes you have to go get out of the car, go find a stick and put a stick under the wheel and figure out another way out because pressing the gas isn't working. And it's the same thing in business, that sometimes the way forward isn't the way you thought. And so you have to find another way out. And
Right.
I think that's the real lesson in any adversity in business or life, is that sometimes the way you thought it was going to happen, and this is what happened with me with having a baby. I mean, I was trying to get pregnant. I had to go through infertility treatment, and it was like, I can't believe I can't get pregnant. I'm a woman. Like, what's happening? And it's like, it's going to happen if you want it to happen, but there may be a different way. And you have to look at life that way. You can't get something so set in your mind of the way it's going to be, and then when it doesn't happen, feel like a failure and
Right.
give up.
Yeah,
Isn't that the thing
absolutely.
every entrepreneur and every business owner says? The only difference between the ones that succeeded and the ones that didn't are the ones that succeeded just didn't give up. They failed, but they didn't give up. They kept
Right.
going. They found another way.
Yeah. Finding another way is it's key. And I think that's the cornerstone of resilience, right? I mean, resilience can be defined so many different ways, but I mean, in that, I love that you just said that, because that really is, resilience. Most people think is like, you're able to bounce back from adversity, but it's really you're finding another way
Yeah.
to move forward.
And I think adversity, I think about this a lot because I think adversity is something that you think is a bad thing. And then when you start to have enough of it in life, you realize it's the thing that makes you great.
Yes, but
It's
you're so right. The hard part is though, while adversity is happening,
Mhm. Oh,
you're
yeah.
thinking this is
True.
the worst thing ever, right? So it's really
Right.
hard to separate yourself from that experience, that emotional experience you're having
Yeah.
at that time, to realize that this is actually going to make me stronger. And I should be paying attention to what's happening and how I'm reacting.
Yeah.
Because when, and having that mindset of when I prevail, I'll be able to look back at this and see all the things that I was able to do.
Well, and no one knows that better than you, Ian. Everything that you went through to be able to walk again, to be able to run a marathon, that mindset. I mean, that was adversity, like someone telling you you will not walk again, like doctors, and that is a mindset. I mean, I could have just walked away and said, "Okay, we're done. Let's move on. Go try something else."
Hmm.
You could have
Hmm.
settled and said, "This is my life,"
Yeah.
but you didn't. So it's a choice.
Yes.
In that moment, it's a
Yes.
choice. Am I
Right.
going to be the victim of my circumstance or the victor?
Hmm.
And it's not about how, it's about when. Like you said, it's about it. One foot in front of another foot in front of another foot is how you do it. There's no other way other than one step forward.
Yeah.
And people want to get to the end before they do the steps in between. And I think that's what keeps them from starting, is that they don't see the path forward, but you just need to take one step.
Yeah. It's all, what is that old analogy? How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time,
Yeah.
right? And I mean, you are, the epitome of resilience, and having all of these things break down in your life in terms of like your dreams, your plans, like they were put on hold. But what is really impressive about you, Jen, is that you stopped, you did something else for someone else, and then you came back to it. Because so many people that would have been in the past. That's something I did,
Yeah.
but you're able to kind of you found that fire and that passion again, making it into your new purpose, and saying that that's not something I did, that's something I still do.
Yeah.
I just haven't done it for a while, but
Yeah. I mean, always knew it was still a part of me. And I think it was kind of deep down in there. But I think what really I don't know if I would have gone back to coaching, to be honest with you, without the revelation that I had lost myself, that
mm,
I had completely, I mean, I was I would say borderline depressed. I wasn't feeling my life.
yeah,
And, after COVID, and I had a really hard time with COVID because I'm a really social person, and it just did not make sense to me, the whole thing. I understood that there was this horrible, virus going around, and I understood that people were at risk. I just didn't understand the human connection. I couldn't wrap my brain around it. And I really struggled. And I looked for ways to cope, but when I was kind of at that point of like, I can't live my life like this. Like, I'm not a good enough mom to my kids. I'm not present because I'm running around checking all the boxes. I wasn't present. I wasn't in my joy, and I had nothing to not be grateful for. I looked around my life. I had a successful business. I had healthy kids. I had a, supportive husband. I live in a great neighborhood. Like, there was nothing on the outside that looked wrong, but
Yeah.
I couldn't feel it. And
Yes.
so I think I needed to go inward to check in with what is going to give me my joy back, because all these things on the outside look great, but I am not feeling it. So something is wrong. And that's when I had to, and this is what I take my clients through, is I had to really check in with, who am I and what do I love? What do my yes, I love my kids. Yes, I love my husband. Yes, I love my life.
Right.
But what lights me up?
Yeah.
And it's that ability to connect with others, that moment, that those aha moments in life. I live for those. I literally live for those.
Yeah.
I mean, and I remembered who I was, and I remembered standing on a stage in middle school, and I remember being on a podium in high school, and I remember a moment where I saw a public speaker come and speak to our entire high school, and I was like, wow, that's what I want to do. I felt alive in those moments, and I wanted that feeling back. And so when I checked in with that part of myself and said, who am I and what do I want out of life? I knew I had to go get that. I knew I had to go find that thing. And coaching happened to be the catalyst to help me get to that. So that's when I go back to those breadcrumbs, right? Those breadcrumbs in life that are slowly nudging you. Oh, find coaching. Oh, do this. Oh, find Amberly. Go start a podcast. All those little things
Yeah.
were just the stepping stones to finding my joy again. And that's what it's really all about.
That is awesome. God, I mean, that's like mic drop. Boom.
Yeah.
Right there. And I think that the work that you do, and with your speaking and with the retreats that you put on, and with the businesses that you work with and the women that you help, I think that is so important, because there are so many women out there who identify as mom, identify as wife, but don't identify as self anymore.
Correct.
And I say that, and I've earned the right to say that, because in my profession, I've sat down with many women over the last 12 years in the fitness industry, sitting down with them and talking about their goals and understanding, helping them understand why they are where they are, being in an unhappy situation,
Mm.
and hearing time after time after time after time, well, I'm putting my kids first, I'm putting my husband first, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm taking care of everybody else except me.
Yeah.
And they've lost themselves in their identity of being the provider of all the things: emotional support, food, helping to support the family with finances, and all these other things. So, I mean, just to use you as a reference, you were mom, you were wife, but then you lost who Jen was, but you were able to find her again. And that is so important, because as you talk about, that's the key to finding your joy.
Yeah. It is. And I think when you speak about those women, I think that's where I can almost feel a little tug at my heart, because I see those women. I see those women in my community. I work with those women, and I know what that feels like. And it's complicated. We've got society's expectations of what moms are and
Mhm.
who moms should be, and what
Right.
they, how they should act. And the expectation at a primal level is to be the caregiver, and we are. And
Yeah.
and keeping them fed, safe, loved, all those things are come naturally. But
Mhm.
society, we've almost put another level now, which is the expectation of being there for every single moment and seeing and sometimes I think there's women who think that if they're not there for every second of their child's life, literally picking up the pieces, that somehow they're failing. And I think there's a messaging thing going on in society, a subculture about that is really unhealthy. And I think hopefully we're breaking that stigma a little bit, about women, because now it's like, yes, we can work and we can have a family and we can have it all and we can be good moms and do that. I think there used to be this thing, like, if you were a working mom, you were not making your kids the priority
Right.
or whatever. And so
Yeah.
I think that there's this breaking down of that belief system a little bit, but I think it goes down into the subculture of the generation prior to us that told us this is what moms look like. And we have to redefine that. And that being a good mom means being present in the moment. It doesn't mean being there for every second. It means being present in the moment. So if I was running with my kids everywhere and being there, but I wasn't present because I wasn't happy, that's not being a good mom, right?
Right.
So having that wherewithal and that mindset to say, I can go and say, boys, I'm going in my office for an hour to do a Zoom call. You're on your own for 30 minutes, get your homework done. And whatever. I don't have to be sitting there on top of them and feeding them snacks and being perfect poly mom. I can work for an hour while
Yeah.
they keep themselves occupied. And that's okay. And so I think there's this messaging that needs to happen to break down the culture. But when you go into the mindset of these women, it's really telling them they deserve their joy too. And you can be a good mom and have time for yourself. You can be a good mom, be an amazing mom, and show your kids what it looks like to be independent.
Right. Yes. And run your own business and be
Yes.
successful and do all the things and
Yes,
still be a great mom.
exactly.
Yeah. And be happy while you're doing
And
it.
be happy. Who wants an unhappy mom that's there all the time? No one, right? And then I see these women, empty nesters whose kids are gone. And then they're like, oh, I forgot about me. And
Yes.
they're
Right.
in their mid 50s and they're
Yeah.
still healthy enough to live 20, 30 more years of doing something great, but they don't know what to do with themselves. I work with a lot of empty nesters too, because they've forgotten about themselves for so long, they are not sure what to do with themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a whole host of problems that comes from that as well. So it's like part of me saw the writing on the wall that if I didn't go back to me, I was going to be completely lost in 10 or 15 years. And now I'm like, I can't wait. I'm like, oh, my 70s are going to be amazing. You know what I mean? Because I have a plan for my life.
Yeah.
And after kids, and I think that that's something that, women really need to start paying attention to. There's a whole second chapter of your life after kids. What do you want it to look like?
Right. And might as well start putting the work in now to have everything you need when that time comes.
Exactly.
Wow. Jen, I know that I could talk to you for hours, but I know that you are a very busy woman doing all the things. And I want to make sure that our listeners and our viewers know how to get more information about you, learn about your retreats, and so they can wait with bated breath on that book that is coming out later on this fall. So how can our listeners and viewers find out more about you and the services that you offer?
Sure. So obviously Instagram is, everybody pretty much is on Instagram these days. So I'm at Jen_Mentesana, which is Mentesana. I also have a website, jenmentesana.com. You can always email me from there. I always respond to everybody. I do retreats. I have a retreat coming up in October in Santa Ynez, California. It's the most magical place in the world. If you've never been there, it's inland from Santa Barbara. It's my favorite place on the planet. Maybe next to Italy. I don't know. They're pretty close. And so I do retreats for women there. And then, I have a book coming out in October. Also, I'm super excited about. I'm like in the trenches of getting the second edit done. And I'm just super excited to connect with women who are passionate about finding what it is that they want to do in this lifetime and actually taking action and making it happen.
That is awesome. Well, we will make sure that we get all those links in the show notes so our listeners and viewers can link up with you. And Jen, I just want to say again, thank you so much for taking the time to be on with us today. There were so many, again, nuggets and pearls of wisdom that you put out there that I know that our listeners and our audience are going to get so much value out of. So thanks again for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Ian. This has been amazing. I look forward to having you on my show soon. We can continue the conversation.
That would be awesome. That would be awesome. All right, guys. Well, until next time, remember to stay positive, stay persistent, and know that mindset is everything. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for tuning in and being part of the Positive Persistence family. We're having a great time creating this content, and we truly hope it inspires you to embrace positivity and persistence in your own journey. If this podcast episode inspired you or entertained you, scroll down, hit those stars, and leave a comment or two. Your 5-star reviews and shares encourage us and help us grow the show. So until next time, stay positive, stay persistent,